Apologies for the toing and froing about this meeting. I'm really grateful for you sparing your time and contributing this afternoon. I'm hoping that we're going to have 45 people in total this afternoon. As you will know from my emails, it's a bit touch and go on whether we'll have enough full members to have a quorum, but we're going to review that, I think, before we start the formal part of the meeting, just to see whether we can carry on or not. I think really the purpose of today is to really review, not just review the last year, but think about the year ahead for the network. And I hope we can spend about 3/4 of an hour or so on in discussion groups. You've hopefully had a chance to look at the papers that I sent round in advance. They cover obviously ideas, priorities for the coming year that I've put together with my colleagues in the support team. I'll keep my review of the year brief because you've had that report. So first of all, what I want to say is a really big thank you to everyone who's helped in any way with the activities of the network in this past year. But I'd particularly like to thank the 3 members of the support team who are all here, I think. Diane Davies, our treasurer, Maddie Goodall, our communications and media lead, and Angela Mackinson, who's led on the membership front. I've had some fantastic support during the year. I think we've achieved a lot because we've had that team together. And also, I think the Network Advisory Group, who have been very helpful in, like having discussions about our ideas before we fully formulate them and take them forward. So many thanks to all of the Network Advisory Group. Second, I think it's fair to say that the member survey that we carried out a month or 2 back, which had a reasonable response, generally showed that I think people who responded were pretty well happy with what we've been doing this past year. And you will have seen from my review, that's a real mixture of online events, some face-to-face meetings, and also a lot of development work, which I've been particularly involved in myself. If you don't feel we've done the right things, or you think we ought to do things differently, then we want to hear from you, because this is your network. And that's really the point of today, once a year to get together to just take stock of where we've been and where we want to go in the next year. So looking ahead, I'm going to break you into discussion groups now for about 45 minutes. They're going to be randomly organised. What I'd like you to do in those is obviously introduce yourselves so you get to know each other. There should be groups of 4 or 5. I'd also like you to really think about the year ahead. There were 10 priorities listed in the plan that I put forward. Some of those things I really particularly like your views on. Things like online meetings, seminars, workshops. What sort of things would you like to be covered? What sort of topics are going to be helpful to you? We started some face-to-face meetings. A couple of those went pretty well, I think, in the last few months. Okay, we're coming into the winter period now, so perhaps that's not quite as practicable, but face-to-face meetings, would they be a good idea, and what could we do with those? I think also there are a couple of proposals in the plan about, I guess, helping the network to operate more effectively as a network. One of them is about the idea of sharing contact details, and I stress that would be purely on a as you wish basis. You wouldn't be forced to do that. If you wanted to join in that, then that'd be absolutely fine. If not, then don't. But if you'd like to share your contact details with other members, then we can do that in the register, and that would perhaps make it easier for you to contact people that you seem had to have an interest in, or what they're doing and so on. Secondly, I think the members exchange that we've had online, whilst it seems to have been used to some extent, I'm not really convinced, and I don't think my colleagues are convinced that it's proved as effective as it might be. And so I'm wondering whether we should go down the route of something called Padlet, which is effectively a sort of a more perhaps user-friendly, more attractive notice board online, where you can post things that you're doing that you want help with, perhaps offers of resources or expertise that you're making to others, and so on. That's another idea. We've also got in there the idea of another Green Care Festival. We ran one this year, which was very much a sort of a piggyback on a lot of events that were already in the programmes of other organisations like the Wildlife Trust and so on. But I think it was pretty successful, and certainly the Bishop's Garden opening that we had was a fantastic event where we raised, I think, over £800, which is very helpful in terms of our budget going forward. So we're suggesting that perhaps we should put some of that money aside for the festival in the coming year. It could be used for promotional materials. It could be used in a relatively small way to help support events that perhaps projects want to put in across the piece and so on. The other thing, obviously, that is an important part of what we're doing collectively, but I guess it comes down to my own involvement in the main, is on a range of development projects, which again, they were listed out in the plan. Things like community wilding, First Nature to expand nature connection opportunities for children and young people, growing together, and so on. I've been amazed at how receptive I think organisations have been to working collaboratively. And I feel proud that in a relatively small way, I think I've managed to help that collaboration move forward. And I'd like to continue to do that, I think, in the coming year. You may have your own ideas. If you've got thoughts about what you think is going to be important to you in terms of what you do, collaboration, networking, information training, whatever it might be, we'd like to hear from you. What I'd like to do is when I break you into groups, as I say, they'll be randomly selected. Can I ask, and I hope this is not too much of an imposition, the person with the first name that's nearest A in the alphabet, could you act as a sort of facilitator recorder? I'm keen to get some notes from each of these groups after the event, which can help inform our way forward. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great. If not, perhaps the next person closest to the alphabet, closest to the A in the alphabet. And if there are two tying on A, maybe we go to the second name as a circuit breaker or whatever. I hope that's all right. I'm going to move between the groups purely as an observer, so you don't ignore me, basically. I'm just there to get a taste of the sort of things that you're talking about. And I hope that it all works out well. I'll put you, I think you should all be able to unmute yourselves, and I'll set up the breakout rooms now. Ready to go. Here we go. See you shortly. You've got about 45 minutes. Hello, Charlotte. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can. Apologies. For whatever reason on my work laptop, that link wasn't open. I've been trying for 15 minutes, so I thought I better try another laptop, so apologies.
I don't know if you can hear me, Charlotte, but I'm going to put you in one of our discussion groups, about 40 minutes in room 2. Hope that's okay. I'm going to sign you now.
That's how that works.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, can I suggest we could pursue that separately if there's an opportunity to do that, because we're back in the meeting now, I think. My apologies for the technology there. I don't know what went wrong there, but the breakout group should have gone a little bit longer, I think, but you're all back now anyway. That's the main thing. Whilst you were away, I did a very quick tally of full and associate members as far as I can see. I think we've either got, I think, something like 24, 25 full members here. We really needed 30 to be quorate today, but I suggest, and I hope you agree with this, that we actually plough on with this, because I think otherwise this is just going to, spill over and continue and become ridiculous. So what I will suggest is that we do the formal meeting, and I will report back via email to the whole membership on the outcome of that. And if anyone agrees or disagrees, they can come back to me and we can take it from there. I hope that sounds all right. Perhaps I can have a thumbs up or a thumbs down from you on the screen just to say that's all right. Thank you. Okay. So quickly, I think first a quick opportunity for each group person who was taking notes in there. If there's anything you want to just feedback generally in terms of your response to the sort of questions I posed you about where do we go next year, here's an opportunity to do it. We haven't got a great deal of time, so I suppose when you're one key point or one key sort of summary would be very helpful. I don't know who was facilitating each group, so you'll have to step forward and put your hands up and come in. But would someone like to kick off?
Okay, well, I'll kick off, because no matter what group I was in, I'd have been the person. As soon as you started talking about beginning with A, I knew that was going to be me. So I think that we had a pretty good talk generally about everything, but there's one thing that was certainly everybody's very pleased about, was the meeting at the Bishop's Garden. We were unable to go to that, but and felt that a similar activity each year will be good. It'd be nice to get to the Bishop's Garden, but we know that can't always happen.
Yeah.
But perhaps to be thinking of venues elsewhere.
Yeah, if I could just come in there, I did mention in one of the groups, unfortunately, we've not successful with our application to get the Bishop's Garden again next year. But I was thinking along similar lines, Alan, if we could have some sort of event that brings projects together with stalls as we did at the Bishop's Garden, I think that would be very useful, and that could form perhaps a kick-off to the festival or something halfway through and so on. But yeah, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Someone else want to come in?
I'm happy to. If I wasn't anywhere near A, but I ended up being the recorder. Similar sort of thing. We concentrated on the middle ones really, to looking at sort of face-to-face gatherings or electronic gatherings and topics and things. But before we did that, we all said Padlet sounds a really good idea. We needed to know more about it, but some way of being able to use the website more to be able to promote events and things that are happening and information would be really good. So we were quite keen on number 2. We talked a lot about what we could some topics: integrated care boards and their opportunities, health benefits, social prescriptions, looking at connectivity of communities through footpaths and cycling networks, looking at the effects of urban planning on people and health and well-being. We also talked a lot about the men's sheds systems and how that we connect communities again through doing, if you see what I mean, community allotments, growing food and promotion of that, and supporting communities in growing food. And also looking at green care and health opportunities. So green care, health, communities, connections came up a lot in our group of topics going forward. There was a big feel that mental health was going to be a big issue for the coming year.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Richard. Some really useful points again. And I think your hand
yeah,
up.
Nigel.
Yeah.
We talked quite a lot about the number of people who follow Norfolk Green Care but don't necessarily engage, and how we haven't got any solutions, I don't think, but we did quite a lot of discussion around that. And we said actually it was very similar in other organisations, in our own organisations, and that we're seeing it across the board. But one of the things we talked about was, do we need members who are either associate or full members? Could there just be a membership?
Yeah.
And in that membership, would it be right to have perhaps a nominal charge, depending on the size of the organisation or whether you're an individual, or even an optional charge, not because there will be people and groups who perhaps can't afford it. We're not sure though, and the group felt this, we weren't sure whether that would increase engagement, but it might be one way of people saying, well, actually, I've paid my £10 a year. I'd like to get something out of it. So yes, quite a lot of talk around engagement and how we could help that. Also around how we can, I know you're looking for people who can support the day-to-day running of Norfolk Green Care. And I know I for one, perhaps didn't read the newsletter closely enough, but perhaps a little bit more clarity about how much time would each role would require. So perhaps just sending us all a message and saying, look, this is, and perhaps we could then work in very small teams, because we are all, by the very nature of the work we do and our reasons for wanting to link with you, is that we are already all at full pelt working on our own community activities. So that was just another thought, really. We all want to help, but we're a little bit anxious about how much time it may take.
Sure, totally understand that, and thank you very much for bringing that forward. Yeah, I mean, I think what we've tried to do in seeking voluntary help recently, particularly, is to say really what you've exactly what you said, Anne, which is to try and break it down so that it's not just about a role, it's about, you know, helping with a specific activity or task, which may take, you know, a week or something, or a few days here and there. So I think we'll pursue that. That's a really good idea. And I think, you know, maybe we need to find a way of engaging with the membership in a way that gets them to come forward, if you like, in the way that you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just the last thing was, we talked about a couple of perhaps online events. And for many of us, we know about the work of Thrive, but maybe, I mean, there's some very good speakers and very good people at Thrive who might want to come forward and support us. That's really...
Well, I've got really good contacts there now through the Green Care Coalition, which some of you may know is a national body chaired by Catherine Rossiter, who's the Chief Executive of Thrive. I actually chaired a meeting of it the other day in her absence, and I think we're starting to make some real progress at national level on the whole issue of, I guess, making key decision makers aware of what green care is and what it can do. And yeah, I think we can tap into organisations like Thrive, the RHS and others to get some input from them, particularly if we've got some money where we can perhaps buy in some training, and that might be useful perhaps for online events.
Yeah.
Thank you. Charlotte.
Yeah, we had some sort of similar conversations, I guess, around yeah, people's kind of time and being busy, and yeah, how much it must take to organise all of these activities. We I talked about how the website was really good, really useful, particularly for those kind of starting up and linking up with people. Felt that was really good. But yeah, use of Padlet could be an easier way, certainly in terms of that sort of sharing of information and posting of stuff. Sorry, excuse me while I just look down a little bit. Yeah, we talked about the network shops and drop-ins, and just around, yeah, in terms of people's time, whether or not was it more useful to have fewer of those, but have more within them, and whether some of the stuff, we weren't sure whether everything was getting recorded onto YouTube, and whether things maybe could be recorded and shared for people to pick up later. In terms of topics, because those sessions we felt were still useful. There was things around maybe, yeah, particular niche topics from groups, but also, yeah, the advice for people starting out, maybe something around mentorship, particular funding things, or schools. And the face-to-face gatherings, yeah, I thought that would be, our group was saying, yeah, that would be really useful. It's a way to, yeah, get sort of some inspiration and hearing about what other people have been doing. And we talked about Nosy Sundays, going and visiting what other people are doing. I think that's probably the key to it, unless there's anything else from my group that anyone wanted to.
Well, we'll leave it there,
missed.
Charlotte, because we're pressed for time, I think. But thank you very much. That's really good. I hopefully, get notes from all picking up on some of these points after the event. Gary and then Helen, I think.
Sorry, I was muted. We also talked about Padlet and communications, the importance of a good, easy to use communications system, because we're concerned about building mutual support, and there are others who are using Discord in a similar way to that. We like the idea that there are so many events planned, and that it's a mixture of online events and face-to-face events, and that's supported by online tools like Padlet. Sounds like a very good plan. We went around talking about what each of us thinks they need or whatever. There's a lot of talk about social prescribing, and people want more information about how that works and how to use it. We'd like to hear more about individual projects that have worked really well, and spread those the best ideas around, and similarly what projects have had a lot of challenges, and what can we learn from that, and what can other projects help them. One useful thing, the Rural England Prosperity Fund, which replaces the Leader Fund, and it sounded like it's not very well formed, so that it might be easy to get money from it, but the deadline for the current round is the end of this month.
Okay.
I think that's it for me. Yes.
Thank you, Gary. That's brilliant. Helen Clark and then Helen Blake, I think.
I'd just add one thing really quickly, because I know you're tight on time, Nigel. One of the things that we came up with was in the register, our group came up with, actually it's really difficult to sometimes know who to talk to, or how you share what your project is, and looking for the right person. We just seem to email Nigel all the time and go, Nigel, answer this question, because we don't know who to talk to. So we said it might be really helpful to include kind of a little bit about what your group is doing and what your project is, and maybe so when you are looking for people in the list, you can go, oh, I need that person, they do this project, or they have this interest, I can ask them these particular questions. So rather than using Nigel as Google, we could maybe go down the list and find particular pieces of information from experts who might have that piece of knowledge. So maybe adding some information to the register about projects that we're working on at that time, or information we're looking for, and so making it a kind of a bit bigger. And if that's going to be added to Padlet, we could maybe add the projects on as we're working on them.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think the role of the register as it's proposed and the role of Padlet are slightly different. I think, you know, the register is something that would be issued perhaps every 3 months, depending on numbers of new members and so on, with, if you agree, the sort of proposals that I've suggested, you know, email contact and maybe a brief summary of interests, stuff like that. And then I think the Padlet is much more sort of the here and now events that are happening, or projects that are happening that need help or support, or the expertise that's available. And I think it's, you know, it's distinguishing those two, but hopefully both useful. Helen, Blake, and then I think we'll finish and move on quickly through the formal meeting, if that's all right. Helen.
Yeah, so our group, I was the only one who'd come across Padlet. My experience was it was quite user friendly, and people were quite happy with using something as long as kind of it's user friendly and things. And everyone in the group was happy with sharing contact details, and certainly if capacity commits, having a little bit more as well. In terms of the programme, and there was a few things that we talked about. We were talking about the use of land and the use of different space, and we were talking about a GP surgery where they were using social prescribing for physical health and mental health, and the mental health priorities. I work as an expert by experience with We Think Mental Illness, and there's a community engagement officer who would be quite interested in coming and doing some community listening, and we were talking about getting that evidence base. And there's also some money available for projects. We were talking about social prescribing. We were also talking about the benefits for refugees and immigrants as well as they're coming in, and that they have a lot to offer, because we've got people in our community, they haven't got anything to do with their time. So we were talking about those kind of things and how to get an evidence base. And we, all of us, found the networks and the connections really helpful to hear from each other, and those opportunities to learn from each other and what's working well, and hear those good news stories, and really welcome the face-to-face as well, and to learn. And the other thing that I would also just like to add from the conversations is I know of people who do connect to the Facebook group and things like that, and they get really inspired by things, but they just don't have capacity. And so I think that what we're doing, sometimes people can't always come to the meetings and do things, but the fact that they are connecting, they're getting things out of it as well. So they might just be engaging on a different level. So I'd just add that as well. But really positive. And I think it is about, you know, just the capacity of people and making sure that people don't put too much. And we had Nick from Men's Shed who said that they'd also be happy to host face-to-face and showing people what they're doing and things like that as well, as a concrete offer of something that could be a face-to-face in the future.
That's great. Thank you very much, Helen. Very helpful comments as well. Just to conclude that section then, and I hope that this isn't being too much of an imposition, if those people who have spoken wouldn't mind just dropping me a line summarising the points that came out in your meeting, that would be very helpful, because I think it all helps to sort of flesh out priorities and the way we go forward. I'm conscious of time. This may well be the quickest AGM in history. But you're probably quite pleased at that prospect, I guess, I would say, knowing your experience of AGMs, but who knows? if we can turn to that agenda, welcome and introduction. Well, welcome. This is the AGM, or the annual meeting of the network. We have certain formal things to go through. The first one is to elect a chair for the meeting, which isn't me. Now, Richard Powell, who's with us, did it brilliantly last year, and I'd like to propose Richard. To be perfectly open, I've spoken to him before today about this, and he's happy to do it. But obviously, if you'd like to nominate someone else or put someone else forward, then please raise your hand. If not, Richard, you've got the job. Over to you.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you, Bob. Thank you for that support, if nothing else. And thank you, Nigel Google Bolero, and a whole new side of Nigel that I hadn't seen before. So that's good stuff. Okay, we'll quickly go through the sort of formal agenda, as it were. And we're sort of into item 3, which is the approval of the minutes we had last year. You've all had those going through, and we've had and done any changes that have come back. So if people are comfortable with those as a true reflection of the meeting we had in Norwich, then can we have some thumbs up or some?
Richard, can I just clarify? Just sorry, they aren't for approval because they were circulated around.
Oh, right, sorry.
So it's just saying they are the approved minutes. It's just really for noting.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
Are there any matters arising from them?
Don't put any hands up because you're already done.
Yeah.
No, it's all right. That's okay. So the next thing then, unless anybody's got anything to discuss on those as matters arising, has anybody got anything they wish to raise on the minutes, as it were, that we haven't already discussed in the meeting? Looking at them, they're all fairly straightforward. No, can't see any hands, so people have come through with that. Okay. Item 4, which is the nominations section. So we need to nominate and presumably vote, Nigel, on the.
Yeah, I've got a series of online polls that will come up for each of these questions, if that's all right. So yeah. The first one, which I'll put up totally unashamedly, is to approve or not me as convener. So there we are. I'll launch that, and this is your chance to vote. I won't be embarrassed if you say no, don't worry.
Everybody looks like they're smiling, so you might get 100% support by the looks of it.
I ought to perhaps say that this is really just for full members. Sorry, associate members shouldn't be voting in this. I'm sorry that's a bit complicated, but so you should know whether you're a full member or not. Well, we've got, I think, 100% of 35, so that includes the associates as well. All right, thank you for that.
Okay, so the next one, well, we've got 2 empty spaces. The next one is the treasurer, is it?
Yeah, and if I can get that right.
We do treasurer and media communications lead.
Diane Davies, who's our current treasurer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Single choice.
Again, if it could be just full members, please, rather than everyone else. I think I can guess who the abstention is. Close relations and all that. Anyway, that looks as though that is great. Share the results. So 96%.
Yeah.
You're in, Diane. Thank you again for all you've done and what you will do.
Media and communications lead is the other sole person, I think, isn't it?
And that is Maddie. Again, who's done a brilliant job for us in the last year.
Yeah, well done, Maddie.
Right, so that sounds good.
That's good.
100%.
So deputy convener.
We don't have any nominations, unfortunately, but I think I'll leave that one and the membership lead open. Mm-hmm. If anyone is interested in picking up either of those roles, then please contact me and we can have a further discussion.
Okay. So yeah, talk to Nigel if you would like to pick up any of those opportunities, as it were. So the second one is the network advisory group. Are we voting these in en bloc, Nigel? Or?
Yes, I think so, if that's all right. Let me see if I've got it. Yeah.
You've got Sarah Hanson, Judith Wood, Simon Floyd, Sally Ann Medler, Carolyn Patrick, Anne Shreve, Dave Garrett, and Tim O'Riordan.
Yeah.
So if you're happy to take them as an all full members.
I hope that's all right, everybody. Again, thank you very much. Looks like it's 100%.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good.
Okay. Moving on to number 5, annual review and plan. So you've got attached also the 2021 plan, but we're also now having had this discussion looking at 22-23 plan, which is attached. So we need to approve the report.
Yeah, there's a poll there for you to fill in.
This is awesome. I'm so impressed, Mr. Google.
Well, I'm amazed it's working, I have to say, given our new experience.
I think this is going to be one of the smoothest and easiest AGMs that we've been involved in for ages.
Let's hope so. Yeah, okay. Good. That looks pretty, again, fairly conclusive. Share the results with you.
And we need to approve the specific recommendation, which is to enable members to share email addresses and interests in a regularly updated and circulated register, with the option not to share these contact details and an obligation to not to share any contact details with anybody not registered without prior permission of the person involved. Are people comfortable to approve that statement?
I just want to underline that it's optional. You know, obviously you can choose to share or not. And in the context of the earlier discussions, it's all about, you know, facilitating, if you like, networking, I guess. Looks great. I think we've got 25 or so, whatever. Thank you very much. That's really helpful.
And we can always send out these results around, can't we, if anybody's got anything to add.
Yeah.
So item 6 is the finance. So we need to approve the accounts of 21-22 and the auditor's report, which was attached. So hopefully you've looked through those. Our interest stands at around about 1.7 million. No, sorry, 1,347.55 pounds. So do you approve the accounts of this time?
The auditor's report, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% 22. So thank you very much.
Good stuff. So next is the budget for 22-23, which hopefully you'll have seen. We're going to spend around about 9.7 million. Oh, sorry, no.
Let me see if I've got that. Sorry. My apologies. I didn't have that. Quick additional poll.
Item 6.2 on the agendas that you got through. So the balance at 1350. Looking for an income of 2150. Print, post and stationery, insurance, equipment, etc. Leaving a balance of 512 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
People are
Hang on a second.
happy with. I'm trying to fill time for you, Nigel. Shall I sing or
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any comments on the budget yourself? He said. Not at this stage, you'll probably say.
No, not by the looks of it.
Okay,
No.
right. Right now, if I can get back in, fingers crossed. Right, here we go.
Smooth as silk. Look at that.
Apologies for all the typos, but it's basically, do you approve the budget? Great, got 20 there, I think.
Okay. And then finally, 6.3, we need to approve the auditor for next year, which was Mr. Carolus, who did the audit for this year. Are you comfortable with that? Yeah.
Yeah, launch coming up. There we go. I have to say he's a neighbour of mine, but he's a very helpful neighbour. He's an ex-banker, and has done a wonderful job for us for free. Well, I gave him a bottle of wine, put it that way.
I guess you must know him well from the address, so it's always good stuff.
Good.
Okay, so we're into number 7. Any other business? We've not had anything notified, so unless anybody raises their hand to raise any other business, I've just got one thing. I'd like to thank Diane, Maddie, and especially Nigel for an amazing year.
Another 10 minutes.
All the work that you do. Gary, were you going to say something?
No.
No. Okay. So
My
huge
wife came in and asked me about dinner.
right. Okay. Huge vote of thanks, Nigel, and your team for all the work that you've done over this coming year. If you didn't do what you did, the care group would be almostly, hugely missed. So keep on the troshin, as they say in Norfolk.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thanks for doing what you've done again. I just want to just reflect. I mean, if you look at the chat, you can see the value of what we're doing, the opportunity to connect around a whole range of different topics and questions. And that's really what we're about here. Okay, we're about developing opportunities for green care, which is something I'm particularly involved with. But I've been very conscious that we need to press on and make the network really work effectively, I think. And we can use Zoom to do that. We can use face-to-face meetings to do that, and so on and so forth. So can I say thank you very much for your support over the year. I'm inspired to carry on, and hopefully we can, one way or another, get the sort of capacity and support that we need to do the ambitions that we have. What I will do by way of follow-up is to email the whole membership with a summary of the meeting, but also with a link to this recording so they can actually view it themselves if they want to. And I would also say to full members, these were the decisions that were made. We weren't quorate, but hopefully you're not going to raise any objections to the decisions that have been made. And now I guess we get on and start planning things. Hope you have a good rest of the evening. We finished, my God, we finished 5 minutes early. I don't believe this. Thank you all very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and love working with you. All the best for now. Bye.